Hello. I like to say good morning to everybody on the first day of March. And some people have asked me, and I've also realized some of my short stories are inaccessible. They just don't know there's more out there. So before I get it printed, hopefully in the next 6 months, I want to share with as much people as I can the online free blog version. And to my readers that have been supporting me, continue to support, continue to like, comment on the short stories underneath the blogs. But I will share the links for 3 more stories. Uh, and I like to, people ask me the creative process when it comes to writing these short stories. This comes from different places. One of the first place is, like I said, I write Christian stories, and some of them are parables. They're not direct out there in your face illustrations or metaphors for Christianity, but if you look, you'll find the message almost like a Chronicles of Narnia, but in my own little version. And I've Googled myself. Sometimes you Google yourself, you don't want to do it, but I Googled myself, and then it says, as a writer, Sam Laurinella writes about Stockton and Filipino American culture, which is true, but I also write about my Christian faith. That's at the thread line through it. So let me tell a little bit about the first story, Meet Me at Kelly's Burgers. Now that's basically a combination of different things. When I was in college, I had a older friend. He worked in the camera lab, the audio visual production lab, and him and his buddies would get together and they have lunch. And I would ask him, because I was a cameraman over at the college. And one of the things that happened was the older guy, this is back in the 90s, but he was from the 70s when he told me the story of when he was in the Vietnam War, when he got out of the Vietnam War, total PTSD, post-traumatic stress, all that stuff, even though they didn't have a label for it, but he recollected a story to me based upon his, and this guy's a very good guy. I haven't talked to him in years, but he said it was okay for me to write the story. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. He told me the story of when he got out of the Vietnam War. Him and his buddy made a promise. That promise was where if one of them dies, the other one would go to their favorite hamburger stand here in Stockton and eat the biggest, greatest, greasiest, but juiciest double cheeseburger with a vanilla milkshake in honor of their buddy. So that's where I get part of it. And also I had friends and family members that came from the Afghanistan and Iraq wars and situations that they were in. Some of the experiences, I combined that to make Meet Me at Kelly's Burger, set in 2008, 2009, around there. That's when I wrote the first draft for it. And I do that because I come from a family. I didn't directly serve in the military, but I come from a long lineage of grandparents, parents, relatives that all served in the armed forces, mostly Army, Navy, mostly Army and Navy. But I come from that background in my family lineage, with my father serving in the Vietnam era. He wasn't serving in Vietnam, but he did serve in that era, the late 60s, early 70s, for one tour, as far as I understand. Now, that was Meet Me at Kelly's Burger. That's where I get the inspiration for that story, and as an honor to my family members that have served, the veterans that have served, and on the Navy too, served in the Navy, Army. And the second story I have is his unwavering love for Anne. That's based on a true story, almost a direct true story. The main character's name is Sam, but his name is Sam Hopper. My name is Sam Laurinella, but I will share with that story and that link. It's a little bit of a comedy just because of the situation. What happened was it's based upon an incident that happened probably 17 years ago now, maybe 18 years ago. Yeah, 2000. Maybe that was 2008. But the whole eight, yeah, that was a while back now. But the idea is based on a true story, and they always say, "Write what you know." And I basically did a friend a favor. I tried to do him a solid. And when that turned sideways, it really turned sideways, and it was kind of a comedy. Some of my stuff, people look at my writing and they might not say it, but they might think it. They might think it for a second and say, "Oh, is he writing a comedy?" But it's sometimes the best comedies are the ones that are true. And when I experienced that situation, if you guys are gonna read it, you guys are gonna figure out, "Oh my God, this really happened to this guy. This really happened to Sam." My name is not Sam Hopper, but I changed it up a bit. So it's just a little hilarious. It's funny. It's a funny situation that happened to me and my friend. And the third story is her name is Beautiful. I'm Filipino American. I'm a third generation Filipino American. One of the situations I've had to deal with is not knowing too many Filipino words. But one of the words that you learn early on, even if you don't know too much, is the bad words, but you also learn how to say good morning. And the word for good morning is maganda umaga po, which literally translates beautiful morning to you, sir. So what happened was I wrote a story based on some of my friends that are in the pharmacy industry, some of my friends that are doing that stuff, and and a situation I experienced with the human resource department, and situations that go on with people that work in the human resource area. And sometimes not just that, but basically people who are under a lot of pressure to succeed, who have that stress of their family, of them wanting them to succeed, and the success. Especially, I added that was a story of a couple of friends of mine that are getting older, and their biological clock is ticking, and some of them feel the sting of that. Some of them felt, "Oh, I gotta have children before it's too late." And what happened was, I wrote a story combining all those elements with the idea of loneliness, and the idea of where do you find your identity in? If you're finding your identity in, you have to have, they call it, I used to call it, love goals, or just certain paces in life. At a certain age, you need to accomplish this. Back in the day, you used to call it quarter life. Back in the 2000s and 2010s, people that were 25 years old, they figured they had to have this happen in their life. They had to have that happen in their life. And one of the things that I noticed is that, especially when it comes to women, some women do have that biological clock situation. When they're they're like 28 years old, 32 years old. They think if they'll have a kid by then, something's wrong with them. And it happens with men too, but not so much. But there is that stress and that pressure from outside and from inside of life, society. What society says you need to accomplish by a certain age. So that's part of what Her Name is Beautiful is about. And the reason why I republished it, I reposted it, is because that situation is real, and but at the same time, it's imaginary too. Who says you have to have X, Y, and Z accomplished by the time you're 25 years old, by the time you're 30 years old, by the time you're 40 years old? You got to have a house and a white picket fence, and you got to have 2.5 kids, etc., etc. That's in a lot of ways now it's becoming a fantasy land for the newer generations. I'm Gen X, but for Gen Z and coming up with Gen Alpha, and millennials, are some of them, that's not going to happen to them ever. They might never own a house. They might never have a situation that accomplishes by the time they're a certain age. So that's about pressure, societal pressure as the two lead characters. One's a woman, and the stress that goes on her life, and the added problems of loneliness and mental illness on top of that. So, just a forewarning: there is self-deletion references in that story, but I do believe, and especially, I came out to tail end. The original title of the story was called February 29th, and if you guys who read the story, for Her Name is Beautiful, this story, that's what it's about. It's set on that time period of February 29th, which is time that's only part way. The rest of the 4 years, you're not going to have a February 29th. You're going to have basically February 28th, and then it jumps like today, March 1st. So anyhow, and anyways, you guys have a blessed one. I do want to stress to you guys that enjoy these stories. And as a believer, as a Christian, I have written them with metaphors and illustrations and as parables. Sometimes you might have to say, oh, this was a comedy parable. Oh, this was a thing. But just always remember, the bottom line is Jesus. You guys have a blessed day. Enjoy. Take care. Amen.